NFTs have quite literally destroyed Ethereum. It's ruined right now. And this is the tale of two cities. And although I'm a perma bull on ETH is going to continue to go up. It is not only the most astronomically powerful store of value, which is now deflationary despite its woes on being actually functional. The reality is the more this happens, the more ETH gets burned. The more ETH gets burned, the scarcer it is, the more the price goes up. So it is this horrific and brutal cycle. But as we look towards a future with ETH 2.0 and proof of stake, well, sharding, all these wonderful things will solve or at least diminish the impact. Now that said, what we're going to go through is I'm going to show you one NFT drop that more or less completely destroyed Ethereum, completely. And then I'm going to tell you how I see the space going forward and where I think the biggest gains are going to come from. And of course, we're going to do a giveaway. It's not going to be in the typical fashion here because we already did our emergency live stream. I don't want to do dual streams in a day. You guys can watch this whenever you want. If you guys are excited, you're definitely going to want to watch this one. Destroy that like button. It's, as always, packed with value. And I'm going to be giving you my insight as to not only what's going on right now, but what's coming next. What's coming next is always more important than what's happened. So it's really critical that you watch this. Smash that like button. Remember, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe and hit that notification bell because that's the easiest way to get ahead of crypto. I'm literally going to be spoon feeding you here. So make sure you do this. And of course, we're going to be doing this in a way that actually favors the bold, the smart, those who do their research. My goal is not only to help you get ahead, but I'm going to lay out some cookie crumbs to make you a better you so that as you get through my information, those of you who understand it better will be even further ahead. So without further ado, let's dive into this. So we just saw GWEI or gas prices spike to 8,500. 8,500. 8,500. It's like honestly to the point where it's hard to imagine that this is even the case, right? It's hard to imagine that you can even get gas prices this high. Like what's going on? So this is the kind of situation where if you're spending literally $500, $600, $1,000 on gas, like who actually has that money? Only the hyper elite, super rich. And of course, I know the excuse is you're going to make the transaction and the thing you're going to have is going to be worth way more than all that. And I get that. But this isn't a product that's made for mainstream consumption at this point. This is a complete train wreck. It honestly pains my heart because this used to only happen during periods of wild congestion, but it's become the norm. So while Ethereum is to me still an amazing asset to hold, as it is the underpinnings of the most valuable ecosystem of all time, the reality is that ETH2, that L2s, that EVM compatible chains or other even more scalable chains are going to start taking the spotlight here because this NFT drop literally broke the entire ecosystem. And for a little bit of comedic relief here, we have Kobe saying ETH fees are so far beyond a joke, you got to wonder if Vitalik was a seed investor in Solana. Obviously, that's very LOL. Might as well retweet that. But look, the reality is that this is kind of sad, right? And as someone who loves NFTs, it's really hard to see this migrating off of ETH, but it's hard also to see it not migrating off of ETH. So obviously, I have my first and second choice as to where I think this should go. But what we're going to start seeing is that NFTs are going to go everywhere and anywhere. More on that in a bit in the wrap up. And you're definitely going to want to stay to the end of this because I have some really important thoughts to share with you about how this impacts my trading strategy and how I'm going to be investing. Now, let's go through this drop. And this drop was for the sevens. If you guys didn't see this, this is the sevens, like anime stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. They're wearing like streetwear and the streetwear is going to be sold limited edition. So like your 7 gets you access to streetwear. I've actually seen a few projects like this. So it's not the only one, but this one hit a chord with people. It's kind of like On One Force, but quite frankly, in my opinion, way cooler. I didn't really like the art for On One Force. I thought it was like just too simple. It was like, okay, it was whatever. So this hot NFT drop, according to Tony Shang here, what is Tony Shang? Cozy Finance. Oh yeah, so he built this thing with Andre Cronje. He's probably someone cool. I don't really know him, but he seems cool. Anyway, he's got some interesting insights here. There was a hot NFT drop now that just sold for 7K thingies and one guy got 1K of them. Let's go ahead and just break this down. One guy was able to get 7,000 of these different 7s, and there was only 7,000, and he was able to get 1/7 of the 7's supply, not to make this a worse tongue twister than it needed to be. The point is that he used obviously sophisticated bots and high gas fees, kind of very much so akin to what we were seeing with when bots would attack new IDOs and new project listings. So as he did this, he was able to get a whole 1/7 of this collection, and now these things are going for some pretty astronomical values. We see here that the floor price is 1.58 Ethereum. So in theory, if this guy got 1,000 of these, then he got 1,500 Ethereum worth. I heard he spent 300 Ethereum on gas, but still, if you multiply your Ethereum that heavily, I mean, it's pretty crazy because the mint price was 0.07. So this is a full-on 20x. So even if he had to burn all that gas, he still ended up winning. Not to say that he could easily liquidate for this, but I mean, it's pretty gosh darn impressive so far. Anyway, the point is that this one guy got the whole supply, super unfair, super whack, and they were limiting to just one per wallet. So how he was able to do this was straight using NFT miner extractable value. He big brained it. He went around, cut the line. And so it brings in the question. Here's this guy, 0xMons. I don't really know who this is, but he brings up some good points. So I'll go ahead and read them out. To every new NFT launch, if you don't read this and adapt, you are bad. Kind of reminds me of the way Alex Becker talks. Anyway, so he's saying having a mix of distribution methods for your initial supply. Most of the gas impact from NFT launches is due to the initial mint being the first come, first served. Demand is clearly greater than supply. This worked for a while, especially back in the Bored Ape days when you would just mint and it would take a few days and people would kind of lazily make their way in and eventually discover the project, organic growth. And now because these YouTubers have covered it and made this whole thing popular, damn those YouTubers. Well, now this whole situation is blown up. We have Flipper Mania and people are going in just like they did on fungible tokens, and the bots are buying things up and sending them up to the sky right off of launch. Now, the typical rationale for first come, first serve is that it's fair, right? It's a fair launch, but it's not really fair because now we're actually just rewarding the bots and the miners. So instead of having 100 supply allocated directly to first come, first serve, he's suggesting a different model. I think it's compelling. 50% Dutch auction. This typically limits the gas wars because it's a game of chicken to see what price is really the market price people want. And if you start the Dutch auction pretty high, then in theory, you might limit the amount of people immediately aping in. So that's one way to do it. 30% of the supply could also be for the Discord and the Telegram members that are early. He's saying you could do this with a Merkle tree. Again, no wasted transactions or like a whitelist here. And then 20% of the supply should go to cool fan art and sites. And so this is a way to sort of reward supporters here with 50% of the supply, and then 50% of the supply goes to those willing to pay at whatever price. Anyway, Dutch auctions are good because people can compete on willingness to pay without effing up gas fees. Whitelists are good because you can intentionally choose who gets access. First come, first serve when there's excess demand is bad. And I think this is something we encountered at Superfarm. Remember when we did the Superfarm Genesis drop? Well, those assets were way over demanded for the supply. And so we had to switch to a whitelist lottery because people were essentially angry that bots got them. Even though there was a pretty fair distribution on the first couple of drops, the reality is that a whitelist solution is kind of the only way to do it, but it is quite gas intensive to upload whitelists, and it just sort of shifts a new dynamic into the equation. So finding the perfect distribution method is quite an interesting feat. Now, I do want to say for those who might be holding Superfarm Genesis editions, there's going to be a lot of utility coming to those assets. The Fast Pass is going to be in full effect, and there are so many amazing projects lining up to use the NFT Launchpad. Very, very exciting stuff for Superfarm Genesis holders. Utility is king, in my opinion, with NFTs. The point of this is that their single biggest issue here is with gas and NFTs that lack sufficient thought being put into initial distribution. So I agree. This is just an initial thought that could really show you how much room there is to evolve the actual NFT ecosystem. But also it brings into the equation the question of, is gas just too damn high, as the meme would say? And is Ethereum kind of broken right now? Now, DC Investor says, I don't like high gas prices, and in my opinion, we should do whatever we can to promote L2 or some kind of EVM sidechains. But there is little doubt that recent NFTs have dramatically increased the value of Ethereum block space. So it's kind of the tale of two cities here. Obviously, I commented below Immutable X, Polygon. These are my favorite alternatives. There's also Solana and Cardano. Pretty much any scalable blockchain, including Avalanche, which I'm actually getting quite interested in Avalanche. That tech is quite compelling, if you ask me, especially in this climate where people are looking for alternatives. Immutable X and Polygon are definitely the most Ethereum native, I feel like, options. And then you have the other EVM compatible chains. Regardless, I agree with this. I want to support it. I'll like that. Make sure you're following DC Investor, and definitely make sure you're following me because things are about to get crazy with my NFT coverage and content and just my altcoin content in general. I think I finally figured out the way that I can cover these things without over covering them. My biggest thing was when I was covering altcoin gems back in the day, I didn't like the pump effect where people would rush in and just buy up anything that I covered. So I wanted to cover things in a knowledge-based way that didn't actually affect the charts. So I think I figured it out, and that's coming. But the only way you can get access to that is if you have that bell notification on. So make sure you have that on. It's good for your health. Now, as NFTs have actually started to move into the mainstream of crypto, and they really weren't at first, there's a new asset class here that's coming in and part of the cyclical money flow. Now, we always talk about money flow from Bitcoin to Ethereum to large caps to low caps. Well, in this particular case, what we're seeing is he's saying the flow here is between Bitcoin, ETH, DeFi, and NFTs. I actually like this thought. I like this take. I'm going to chew on it for a bit. Let me know what you guys think about this take. NFTs, in my opinion, are the highest risk, highest reward asset class in the entire crypto space. People are making extraordinary gains. I mean, think about it. Things don't 20x. Things just don't 20x. But if you get in on the mint for something like a sevens, you mint for 0.07. Again, forget about gas fees at first, but even if you meant that for 0.1 or 0.15, that's still a 10x. I mean, when have you bought something that immediately 10x's before? It's pretty crazy. So these types of moments are really, really important, and NFTs clearly are the highest gainers, the highest reward providers in the crypto space. So this can be considered the highest risk asset class and the highest reward asset class. Again, I've made a killing in NFTs over the last few months, scarily so, and I never thought I'd be able to make this money just in the assets alone. It gives me so much excitement for when actual games are using these NFTs and the games are good. Really crazy stuff. But anyway, just for a little bit of logic here before I go into my final thoughts and I talk about the giveaway I'm going to be doing, which is people are angry about JPEG selling for $1 million, fail to see the bigger picture. If you understand the nature of assets and long-term macro backdrop, it's easy to see why NFTs will grow exponentially. Here's a simple framework to wrap your head around the new asset class. What are assets? They are instruments to transfer ownership of value across time and space. Your Amazon stock is ownership on Amazon future earnings. Your ounce of gold is ownership of $1,830, today's gold price, worth of economic output. You can use it to claim a share of today's GDP by, say, using your gold to buy some groceries. Anyway, she goes on to show how NFTs are in every way an asset class just as much as everything else. But just like everything in crypto, its ease of storage, its immutability, its lack of degradation, its historic nature. It's very interesting. It's very compelling, the NFT thing. Again, in my opinion, most NFTs will go to zero, just like most things, most cups. NFTs are just things, right? So NFTs will go to zero just like most things go to zero. But occasionally, there are things that hold and grow in value, and those are really interesting. And finding out which ones those will be or front-running those in NFT land, it's very, very compelling. So today's NF Tuesday is a very weird one because the market is in dump mode and NFTs have been up only for the last 3 months. Of course, they're going to be hit the hardest. But of course, if you're in blue chips, which is hard to get into, but of course, like my theory has gone, those blue chips will be the ones that have dip buyers. Those blue chips will still have liquidity. The CryptoPunks, the Bored Apes, the Art Blocks Fidenzas, those are the things where those buyers, your fellow holders, remember how many times I've talked about this? Who are your fellow holders? Because if your fellow holders are the people who are looking 3, 5, 10 years out in the future, and they're not going to be shaken by a 10, 20, 30% correction, well, then you're in a project that probably will have the ability to recover. If you're in Flippermania projects, like these new hot avatar projects, like the Sevens, whatever it might be, the chances are that those projects will have a much tougher time coming back if they do get decimated. So that's why blue chips are so important. And I do have a theory that those top 1% of the 1% assets will see a concentrated liquidity. So that's just my theory. Again, we're seeing this all play out in real time. You're experiencing history right now with all of us. But in true historic fashion, I'm here to give away some overpriced JPEGs, and hopefully it can help some of you out. So I'm going to be giving away a Doge Pound pup. I'll have more information on that on my Twitter. Make sure you're following my Twitter. Put those bell notifications on because you're definitely not going to want to be slow to the party on this one. Again, I'm just giving this stuff away because I want people to hopefully get involved in a lower risk way. I know that not everyone has had the ability to be so fortunate in crypto. Some people are getting in with much smaller stacks. And hey, if I can give someone something that is worth, an Ethereum or something like that, then people can kind of now be at the table and they can actually stomach a gas fee and a minting fee, and maybe they can actually do something creative with it. Anyway, I'll be giving away some pups on my Twitter. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have that bell notification on, and make sure you're following my Twitter. That's it for me for Non-Fungible Tuesdays. As always, I've been covering NFTs pretty much every day, so look for that, but we'll have some really in-depth interviews and coverage next week for sure. And make sure you're tuned in tomorrow for my stream with Alex Becker. It's going to be an amazing one. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Elio Trades, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.